Hello and welcome to your listening strategy class. Please enjoy.
In this video, we're going to talk about general strategies that will help you as you prepare for the listening test. It is a good idea to know the format of the test so you know what to expect. First thing you need to know about the listening test is that all the questions are in the same format. Multiple choice in a drop-down menu. You've got a question and you've got 4 options. The beautiful thing about multiple choice is if you think carefully about a particular question or a difficult question, you can just guess what the right answer is. And if you guess without thinking, every single time you guess without thinking, you only have a 25% chance of getting it right. So every time you get a question that is so hard, just think about it. Try to practice what we call elimination method. It's something I always want my students to always practice. Look at the question very well. Are there things that you can quickly just take out? Maybe you've got 4 options. Okay, option A doesn't make sense. Option D doesn't make sense. Now you're left with 2 options. Reducing your options actually reduces your stress and gives you better chances of getting it right. So whenever you get a difficult question, try to eliminate. Please never leave an answer blank. Try to guess. Even if you are not sure, please guess. You do not lose a point for guessing. However, you might just have a 25% chance of getting it right, so why not try? Now, listening part 1, 2, and 3, each question is presented on its own screen. That means for listening part 1, for example, you have 1 question per screen. 1 question for 1 screen. So you will not be able to answer all the questions at once. You can only answer 1 at a time. Then for listening part 4, 5, and 6, all the questions are presented on the same screen. So you can split your time equally among all of them. You really have to be careful though. When it's 1 question per screen, students are always very fast trying to answer the questions as fast as possible because the timer is just there. But when it's 6 or 7 questions in a screen, sometimes we tend to spend so much time in a question and we time up without answering every other part of the question. So you really have to be careful about that. Some of the later parts of the listening test can be very difficult, especially listening part 5 and 6. It isn't because the topics are extraordinary or they are nothing you can relate with. Nope. They are all about day-to-day matters. The difference is, or the problem is, these parts tend to contain a lot of difficult vocabulary. So if you have very limited vocabulary, you might struggle. For example, I read the word communicate, and then in the question it says speak. It's easy for me to know that communicate can also mean speak. But what if it says apprehensive? On the audio, I hear the word apprehensive, and then in the question, I hear the word nervous. I might struggle to understand that apprehensive and nervous could mean the same thing. That's the only difference. When they use paraphrase, they tend to use a lot of difficult vocabulary. So this is a good time to start to build your vocabulary. I don't mean going to read a dictionary or study the dictionary. Nope. You can be intentional about doing this. There are several ways you can improve or build your vocabulary. One way of doing this is if you're someone who loves watching movies like me. I watch movies a lot. Every time I'm watching movies, I'm very intentional about picking new words. So if I hear a word on TV, I try to guess the meaning of the word and then write it down. Then I check my dictionary to see if I am actually correct. If I am correct, kudos to me. If I'm not correct, I check the meaning of the word, write it down in my vocabulary journal, write the meaning of the word, use it in an example. Like I try to create an example for myself. I use this word in an example, and tomorrow, maybe the next day, I try to use it as I talk to my friends, I talk to people. Nobody knows what I'm doing, but I know I'm trying to build my vocabulary bank. So I take words. Or even if I'm just reading a book, because I love to read a lot. When I'm reading a book, I find a new word. I don't just highlight it. Oh, this word sounds good. No way. I write it down, check the meaning, try to use it during my day, and then it just stayed. So you can also practice doing that. Also, you should be aware that most of the test will rarely use the exact words as in the recording. Remember, we've talked about this during your reading class. Yes, it's very unlikely. So if you hear one word in the recording, in the question, you're going to hear a different word. Like the example I used, apprehensive, that's what you heard in the recording. On the question, you could see nervous. So you have to be able to identify, paraphrase, or synonyms. There are also some question types that requires you to understand summary. We talked about summary on the first day of your reading class, remember? but we're going to go over it a little bit again. Summary. You have to be able to identify summaries. We'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, so quickly to summarize the key points we've talked about today in this video, the first is guess wisely. If you get a question that you find difficult to answer, try to guess. Try to eliminate incorrect answer in each multiple question. Second, answer every question, even if you're unsure. Please do not leave an answer blank. You see your time is clicking or is ticking fast. Just click on the choice. While you still have time, you can go through it again, but be sure you've made a choice already so you don't time out without answering any question. If you've got extra time, use it to double check your answers. Yes, we might be very confident, oh, that is the answer, but then it's not correct. Maybe when you're at home sleeping at night and you remember something, say, oh, that wasn't right, but there is really nothing you can do about it. You've answered it already. And number 4, take notes. This can really help out. Don't worry about notes taken. When we get to part 5 and 6 of your listening class, we'll walk you through step by step how to take notes, because this will really help you, especially during the tougher listening part. And number 5, don't worry so much about difficult vocabulary. Sometimes just guessing the meaning from the context. You see a new word, you don't know what it means. Remember what I said about the movie? Try to guess the meaning from the context, and it might just help you. I think we have exercises on the group that can help you learn how to guess meaning from context. And then finally, you should be able to identify paraphrases and summaries. Yes, your paraphrasing skill will really be tested in listening part 4, 5, and 6. So from today, you should be able to know how to recognize paraphrase and summary. Now, let's move on to listening strategies number 2. In this part, we're going to talk about the listening questions themselves. It is true that we said that all questions, all 38 questions in a listening test are all multiple choice in a drop-down menu. That is correct. However, we can group them into 3 categories. Knowing this beforehand will really help you mentally and reduces your stress as you prepare for the exams. What are these 3 categories? The same ones we've talked about in your reading test. The first category is general information. The second is specific information, and the third is inference question. So we're going to start with the first one, general meaning questions. What are these questions? Now, general meaning questions are questions that ask you about the overall message or big picture message. It doesn't focus on specific questions, but it focuses on the main ideas of what you've just heard. Main ideas. It could be questions like, what is this passage about? What is this news report about? Why is the woman talking to the man? These are all general questions. While you were listening, nobody in the recording says, this news report is about this. Nope. But you're expected to answer questions like that. So how do you answer general meaning questions? To help you answer questions like this, you have to think about the passage as a whole or the audio as a whole. What took the most part of this conversation? What was the main thing they kept talking about? You really have to be careful when answering general meaning questions. For one thing, all the options you will get in your multiple choice will be mentioned in the recording. For example, maybe the question says, what were the 2 speakers talking about? Option A, how to build bird houses. Option B, how to make bird food. Option C, what weather is good to making bird food, for making bird food. And option D, something else. Note, all 4 of those options will be something that you heard in the recording. But the question is asking, what are they talking about? So you're going to ask yourself, what took the most part of the conversation? What is the one thing they kept talking about? The fact that they mentioned weather once in a recording doesn't mean that's the main thing they're talking about. Or the fact that they mentioned how to make bird food or how to build bird houses once in a recording, it doesn't mean that's the main thing they were talking about. Always ask yourself throughout the conversation, is there anything they kept talking on and on about? That is the main thing they were talking about. So when you're answering general questions, be very careful not to choose the first option that comes to mind because you heard it in the recording. Take note that almost all 4 options, if not all of them, will be mentioned in the recording. So be very careful before you choose. Ask yourself again, summary. Do you see why we keep talking about summary? You have to build your summary skills. It keeps coming up. Are you able to read a piece of text or listen to a piece of text and summarize it by bringing out the main point? That will be tested here again in your listening. So throughout your listening test from part 1 to part 6, you will get a general question. What is Vickers talking about? What is the main thing talking about? You get in different form. Let's move on to the second question type, which is specific information. Now, these sort of questions is the opposite of general meaning questions. Specific information doesn't apply to the overall situation, but rather to specific points. And this is where keywords come into play. The question could be something like, how many cups water did the woman recommend to be added to the recipe? Very specific. It was mentioned in the recording. You heard it. So it's not all about general meaning, but very, very specific details. So you have to remember, she said 2 cups water, 3 cups sugar. Then you have to answer the question. So please, it's a good idea to have a better idea of what sort of information you're going to be asked about. When we start your listening class from part 1 to part 2, part 3, when we get specific question, I'll point it out. This is a specific question. Sometimes with the more you practice, you can actually guess what kind of questions will pop up in your questions. By just listening to the audio recording, you can tell. Sometimes my students are able to do that. They're like, this will come up, this will come up, this will come up. You too will be able to do that. And the last part of, or the last category, is inference questions. This is my favorite. Sometimes students struggle with this, but really it's my favorite question. What are inference questions, or what is inference question? The word inference is actually an English word that means to guess or to draw a conclusion. So for inference questions, you're expected to draw conclusions based on what you've heard. The answers aren't mentioned in the recording. Nope. Maybe the recording just ended and you get questions like, what would the man do next? What would she most probably do next? Those are the kind of questions. You are required to draw conclusions or make a guess based on what you have heard. Anytime, test takers often wonder, what if my guess is wrong? Or what if I guess something different and my partner gets something different? You know, this question often come up in class, and I always do something to help everyone know that their guess can be the same. Now, I'll use example here right now to explain inference question. Listen to this example. I want to buy a pillow. I've only got $100 to buy this pillow. Now I walk into the shop and the shop attendant gives me 3 options. First option, the pillow is for $100. Not very good quality. It's actually what I have right now, but it wasn't really working well. Second option is for $100. It's not like it's the best quality in the market, but it's okay. People use it and it lasts for quite some time. And the third option is for $200. This is the best quality in the market right now. Best quality. Now you will get an inference question that asks, what pillow would Jenny most likely buy? I leave it up to you. What do you think? Which pillow would I buy? $50, $100, $200? What was your answer? Did you get it right? Yes, of course, $100. Students get it right all the time. Okay, let's change it a little bit. I've got $100 to buy a pillow. I walk into the shop. The store attendant gives me 3 options. Option number 1, $50. This pillow is good quality. It's not like the best in the market, but it's actually good quality and people buy it. Option number 2, $100. Good quality. It's not like it's the best in the market, but good quality. People buy it. It's the same quality as the one for $50, just different brand names. Option number 3, $200. Best quality in the market. Now, the question is, which pillow will Jenny most likely buy? Can you try now? $50, $100, $200. Remember how much I've got? $100. Good, you got it right. I'm gonna buy the one of $50 this time because $50 and $100 are the same quality, but what I have, the money I have is $100. I will not be able to afford the one for $200, but it will be foolish on my part to spend $100 for something I could get for $50. So again, your guess is correct. You know what just happened? You just made an inference. So when making an inference, use only the information given in the question, in the article, in the recording. Only the information given. Do not try to complicate matters by trying to think, oh, what if the one for $50 comes from a country that's known for not selling good quality or something like that? You're complicating matters. Only use the information you've been given in the recording. Please, only use the information given in the recording to answer the questions. How do you know which questions are inference questions? If you hear the word, if you see the word likely, most likely, probably, most probably, then it is an inference question. What will the woman most likely do next? What do you think will probably happen next? Whenever you see that, pause a little bit and say, okay, this is an inference question. The answer isn't directly mentioned, but with all the details I've been given, I'll be able to answer this question correctly. Throughout your classes, when I come across inference question, I'll point it out to you. When I come across general meaning questions, I'll also point it out. And when I come across specific information, I'll point it out. So you start getting familiar with these question types. How is this going to help you? On the test day, you get an inference question. While others are struggling to find the answers in the passage, you already know that the answer is not there. So you're going to make a guess because you know that the answer to that particular question is not there. I hope this helps. See you in class as we move on to listening part 1.